Hey, Transmath 2 class, we are taking a look at dividing some fractions, and we'll just get started here. We're also going to do a little bit of work with some angle measures again. Okay, so as we divide fractions, the main strategy for dividing fractions is basically you invert and multiply. So what that means is the second fraction, you're going to flip that one over, and so where we had 3/4 divided by 2/3, that's going to become 3/4 times 3 over 2. So you always flip the second fraction over, and then you just multiply across like normal. So 3 times 3 is 9, and 4 times 2 is 8. So they say invert and multiply. Some people say flip and switch. So you flip the fraction, you switch the sign to a multiplication. Okay, so it says let's begin by thinking about division with whole numbers. So if we have 10 divided by 2 and we know that that's 5, just some terminology. The number that's being divided up is called the dividend. The number that you're dividing by is the divisor, and then the answer is called the quotient. Okay, so in example 1 it says divide and simplify. We have 3/4 divided by 3/8. Okay, so what we want to do is invert and multiply, or we can say flip and switch. So we're going to change this to multiplying, and we're going to flip this over. And then we can multiply across. Now remember, there's a strategy, we call it commute, I guess, but if you have the same numbers, one in the numerator, one in the denominator, you can cross those out and make them ones, okay, and then you can multiply across. So now 8 times 1 is 8, 4 times 1 is 4, and then 8 divided by 4 also simplifies down to just 2. 8 divided by 4 is 2, because you can technically divide by 4 on the top and the bottom, and then you would have 2 over 1, 4 divided by 4, and then anything over 1 is just going to be that whole number. So okay, so they're going to kind of demonstrate this with a visual here. If you were taking 3 divided by 1/2, so if each one of these was a whole, like one whole unit, and there were 3 of them, and this is a half unit, right? Basically, you're saying, how many halves does it take? When you divide 3 into halves, what do you get out of that? And so if I were just going to continue drawing these out, these halves, how many does it take to equal 3 wholes? And as you look at that, it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the answer is 6 to that. Now if we did our actual work for that, we have 3, and technically it's 3 over 1. So you can make a fraction out of that by putting a 1 under it, and then we're going to flip it and switch it. So we switch that to multiply, and multiply by the reciprocal, we say, but you flip this over. So this becomes 3 times 2 and 1 times 1. Well, 6 over 1 is 6, and that's what we counted up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Alright, so these ones are kind of just the picture idea. So if we have 2 wholes right here, and then we have broken into fourths, right? How many fourths does it take to fill up these 2 holes? So you can basically count these out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the answer to that is going to be 8. Alright, and if we have 5 wholes divided by halves, right? So each of these is a half of this, so you count those up, and you're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 is our answer for that one. And this one we have 6 divided by 2/3. Okay, so now they have thirds here, so now you have to count by 2s when you're doing this. Okay, so these are 6 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes, and then they're broken into thirds. But if I'm taking 2 at a time, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We would get 9 for the answer on that. Now, I don't know why that switched colors. If I wanted to show work on this, like 6 divided by 2/3, here's what I would write. I'd say 6 over 1, because it's a whole number, divided by 2/3 means times 3 over 2, right? And then I'd multiply across, and I get 6 times 3 is 18, and 1 times 2 is 2. But then 18 divided by 2, well, I can simplify that, right? Because I can simplify like this, and I would get 9 over 1, which is 9. And that's what we saw here. And on all of these, I could have done it in the same way. 5 over 1, and then times, instead of 1 over 2, I'd have 2 over 1. Oops, 2 over 1 is what I meant to say there. Right. So this would be 10 over 1, which is just 10. Same here, I'd have 2 over 1, and then instead of divided by 1/4, it would be times 4 over 1, which should be 8 over 1, or 8. Okay? So that's dividing by fractions. Really, all that you do is you invert and multiply. So they say traditional method here, invert and multiply. So with this one, I'm going to rewrite this as 2 over 1 times 3 over 1. And 2 times 3 would be 6, so I'd get 6 over 1, which would just be 6. For this one, 3/5, and then times 8 over 5, and 3 times 8 is 24, and 5 times 5 is 25, so I get 24 over 25. Okay, for this one I have 4/4 times 4/3. Okay, so again, the second one, I always flip that one over, change it to multiply, and then I can reduce these 4s, cross those out and make those 1s, and so then I get 4 times 1 is 4, and 1 times 3 is 3, so I get 4/3 for that one. Okay, next one I've got 1/2 times, so I'm going to flip this one over, 8/3, and so that's going to give me 8 times 1 is 8, and 2 times 3 is 6. It does say simplify the quotients if you can. Okay, so here I've got 8 and 6, so I can divide each of those by 2. Divide by 2 on each of those, and I'm going to write my answer down here. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 6 divided by 2 is 3, so I get 4/3 for my answer on that one. Okay, here I've got 6 over 1 times 2 over 1. 6 times 2 is 12, and 1 times 1 is 1, so 12 over 1, which is just 12. And then I've got 3/8. This would be times 9/5. And if I multiply across, 3 times 9 is 27. 8 times 5 is 40. And that does not simplify. And number 7, I'm going to write that down here. 4/12 times 16/3. Okay, so 4 times 16 is 64. 3 times 12 is 36. And if I look in my multiplication chart, I know that each of these divides by 4. And so 64 divided by 4 is 16, and 36 divided by 4 is 9. So I would get 16 over 9 for that one. And last one here, I've got 11/12 times 8 over 7. And 11 times 8 is 88. 12 times 7 is going to be 84. And those will both divide by 4. So we'll divide by 4. And 8 divided by 4 is 22. 84 divided by 4 is 21. Okay, so there's all of those answers using traditional division, which just means invert and multiply. Alright, so for these ones it says a protractor is not needed, but think about what's known and then try to figure out the missing angles. Okay, so what's the measure of angle B? Now remember, this little square right here, that means 90 degrees. That's a right angle. So I've got 25 and 30, so let's put those together. 25 plus 30, and that gives us 55. So if the whole thing is 90, that means I have to take 90 minus 55 to get my answer, which we're going to find. If I borrow there, make that an 8 and that a 10, I'm going to get 35. So 35 degrees should be what's left right here. So if I would add together 25 and 35 and 30, that would add up to 90. Okay. What are the measures of angles A and C? Okay, well, again, I've got 90 degrees right here. And they tell me this whole thing is 160. So I've got 90 plus 30. 90 plus 30, so that's 120. And then how much is left to get to 160? Well, I'd have to take 160 minus 120 to get that answer. And that would give me 40. Okay, so that means that angle A is 90 because that has a little square in it. And then angle C has to be 40. All right, for number 3, it says what's the measure of angle B right here? And they give us a total of 150, and then they tell us this part of it's 80. Angle A is 80. So if we subtract those two, we should be able to get our answer. 150 minus 80, and that's going to give us 70. So angle B should be 70 degrees. All right, number 4, find the measures of, it says measures of angle A and B are equal. What are the measures of those? Well, the whole thing is 120. Okay, part of it, angle C is 70. Well, let's take that away from our 120. Let's see what we're left with. That would be 50. And so if all of this is 50, but A and B are equal, then that means we can divide 50 by 2. So if we would divide that by 2, we're going to get 25 apiece, 25 degrees. Okay, last one, challenge problem. It says the measures of A, B, C, and D are equal. So what would their measures have to be? Well, if you look, a straight line is 180 degrees. So basically we have 180 degrees and we're dividing it by 4 equal angles. And if we divide that out, 4 goes into 18 4 times, and that's 16, and if I subtract, I get 20. So they're each going to have to be 45 degrees. And that's it. That's everything for this set of notes.